What's up, everybody? This is Xanehex and Nailo for Hexcast.
Hello.
Today we will be talking about Moon Knight, the whole series, the season finale, etc. So, spoilers ahead.
Yes. Massive spoilers.
Alright, before we get too far into it, Nailo, do you have any questions about anything? As the resident Marvel nerd, I will help.
Do you remember what the name of his mercenary partner was? The guy who shot everyone.
Jake Lockley? No.
So was
Shit.
his
No.
mercenary
No, the partner,
partner?
shit. It was Bushmaster. That was his, Bushman. It was Bushman. Bushmaster is a
Okay.
different Marvel character. They need to diversify.
Because in
Yeah,
my
Bushman.
head, he definitely said the name when he was talking about it. He was like, my partner Bushman or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, and he was talking about it. But then later on, when they show Jake Lockley, I'm like, oh shit, did he actually shoot everyone? And struggle with that? And shoot himself and shit?
That is
And
a good
he just
question.
thought it was his partner? And so I had to ask because I couldn't remember.
No, I think when he told the story that Bushman killed everyone, and then they showed him crawling into the tomb of Khonshu or whatever. I'm thinking to myself, I don't know why he was about to shoot himself, probably because he didn't want to live with all this guilt or anything, but there was no one else around when he was doing that. So I don't know what happened to Bushman or anyone, so it's,
That's true. We don't know what happened to Bushman.
or was it
I'm
Bushman?
assuming Bushman either left, shot everyone and pieced out, assuming everyone was dead, or he killed him.
They also mentioned the champ. Now I'm confused. Now I have to double check. God damn it.
Well, anyway, I was convinced it was Jake Lockley.
No,
I was
Spectre
like,
was shot
oh,
by partner Raoul Bushman. Okay, we're good.
okay, cool.
So I'm thinking he survived. I'm thinking Bushman's just out there somewhere,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Mark just kind of crawled to the tomb.
Yeah, I'm gonna assume that Bushman assumed that he killed Mark and left, but Mark's still alive.
Hmm.
Alright, let's see. So, the end, like, when
Like the after
they.
credit scene or the end?
No. So, clearly, Mark and Steven made a deal with Khonshu, and they were like, we're done. We're donesies. Get us out of here. And he was like, okay. So he takes away the suit.
Yep,
And then the
Dunsies was
next
the
thing.
entire wording of that statement because Steven was in charge during that.
um, and then the next thing you see is them, they've woken up, and it's the same routine. Like, there's the sand on the floor, and there's the foot attachment thing,
Oh,
and the
was the
door is
sand on the
shut.
floor?
Everything was the same. The only thing that was different was there were two goldfish instead of one.
And and Steven and Mark were talking to each other.
Right. So I wonder if I just don't know why. Why did they attack? Why did they? They have no reason to continue that whole charade
Agreed.
unless unless they're still trying to prevent Jake from doing things.
Well, see, they were concerned about Jake in like episode 3 when he first stabbed all those people. And at the very end, they're like, "Oh man, that wasn't you, was it, Steven? No, it wasn't me. Was it you, Mark? No."
I
And
guess I'm just
then they
wondering how
just
much time
didn't
passed.
address it. Now I'm like, I know
Right.
there's a third personality.
Yeah.
They know something's different, but nothing is done about
It was
it.
very, very heavily hinted, which is why I wasn't surprised about it when it did happen. But I'm wondering how much time passed between the end of the fight and when they wake up.
Good question. And where's Layla?
Yeah,
It's like, all right, fight's over. No goodbye, Irish goodbye, just out. Suddenly I'm
Because
back
we
in
don't know.
London,
Right.
in an
Because
apartment that I'm surprised I still have ownership of because I've been gone for several days, and Steven doesn't have a job anymore to pay rent.
yeah, I don't know how they make money or eat. No one ate during that entire
I don't
shift.
know what they eat. Steven's a vegetarian and Mark's not.
Yeah, well, they ate steak the one time.
Oh, that was depressing. He's like, yeah, I'll have it well done. And I'm like, no,
I'll have it.
no, Steven, you
I'll
stupid
have it
vegan.
good. I'll have it good, please.
Yeah, I'll have the best part of the steak and I'll have it good. Good, good and done.
Yeah, good and done.
Kill it, burn it, give it
Um,
to me.
I just I feel like Layla's probably going to there's going to definitely be a time where Mark and Layla run into each other and Jake's in charge and Jake has to act like Mark to avoid Layla getting involved in getting rid of Jake.
True. The hard part is, I mean, she just found out about Steven, so the two of them working together could get along with Layla just fine. I wonder if she'd even notice a third personality creeping in there.
It would it, it would take a while if he's good at acting. If the actor is good at the actor acting.
Hmm. I mean, we've already decided that the actor is good at acting and acting.
Oh yeah, no, he deserves some rewards and awards for this.
I think he should get best character, best supporting character, and all of that. All of those
All of it.
awards.
Yes, agreed. I do think that they did make a good choice in Layla's character.
What
I
do you
did
mean?
like her. Just like in the actress.
Oh yeah, good actor. I should probably look up the cast while I'm just sitting here.
I have so many other questions, dude.
I hope you wrote them down because I can't think of anything off the top of my head now that we're recording.
Well, so my other question is, do you think that I'm assuming, but do you think that Steven and Mark still have access to all of their powers? They just aren't aware of it and not trying to use them because they assume that they're done with Khonshu
Oh,
completely.
absolutely. Totally. Because if Jake is still working with Khonshu, then they still have Moon Knight abilities.
Right, because if Steven was able to use those abilities, then there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to, because
Hmm.
Steven didn't have a deal with Khonshu.
I'm thinking like season 2 or something. They get their nose into some wrong business or whatever, and they confront a bad person without without Moon Knight powers and get shot or whatever, and then wake up not bleeding or something somewhere else, and they're like, "Oh, we're probably still Moon Knight."
Yeah, it's not going to take long.
Hmm.
Um, and part of me feels like that end scene is sort of like a fast forward to they've already figured that out, but they can't figure out how to get the suit back themselves. So they're just trying to do the same shit Steven was doing to Mark in the beginning.
Well, maybe they can get it back. I just think if Steven can summon the suit when Khonshu doesn't like him, and Mark can summon the suit, and they're different suits, and Jake can commune with Khonshu just the same, and I assume he has his own suit because they showed flashes of it at the during the end credits.
Did
Um,
they?
yeah, they showed Mark's suit, and then they shift in a flicker shot to Steven's suit, and then they'll like shift flicker shot to like the mummy wrappings of the whole suit, but they'll like show like a darker side of it real quick.
Oh,
And they're like, we
I'm
didn't see it
looking it
on
up now.
screen, so it's like, yeah, there is more. So I'm thinking once they figure out like, oh, we've been shot and we didn't die, then they'll summon the suit. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, that works.
Okay, yeah, I see now. That's This comic is funny. It makes him look like a cowboy.
Makes him look like it. What are you looking at?
It's just a comic of Jake Lockley's. Uh, Midnight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no,
the
completely
the
unrelated
the
to the
cab driver from New York,
probably.
who whose backstory we don't actually know in this show. Actually, they might change it to maybe he's just a limo driver, or maybe he's a secret assassin from Mexico or
Well,
Spain or something. I don't know.
he speaks fluent Spanish,
That's
so
true. And you cannot
or
trust
maybe
the
he was just
Spaniards.
pretending.
He's
I don't
pretending to
know.
speak Spanish. What a good actor.
Well, he knows enough to pretend to be Spanish, even if he isn't.
hmm I watched a breakdown of this, and I've already forgotten most of it. But at one point, they're like, "Oh man, I can't believe like Jake Lockley must have like some sort of cool ability to seduce people or something because like he just like carted out Ethan Hawke's character Arthur Harrow, just carted him out of the hospital by saying, "Don't worry, Senorita, I got this." And I'm like, "Yeah, he was speaking Spanish. That's not magic."
Yeah,
He's like, "But he did something to her face." I'm like, "Yeah, he probably fucking caressed her face because he's a creepy motherfucker. There
I
wasn't
mean,
magic involved." I just
maybe
think he's a creep. He's a creepy
he's
little
just
Spanish dude.
attractive looking. Maybe he's just handsome. Like, that's all you need.
It's Oscar Isaac. If Oscar Isaac walked into a mental hospital and said, "I'm taking this crazy guy," everyone would be like, "Holy shit, Oscar Isaac wants this crazy guy? Fuck yeah. How many you want? We got a bunch."
Speaking of Harrow, I already told you this, but for the sake of the podcast, I did make the tweet about how Dr. Harrow looks exactly like John Reisinger.
Yes, Rooster Teeth's John Risinger does look very similar to Ethan Hawke's with the long hair as Arthur Harrow.
Yeah, like Dr. Harrow is John Reisinger.
They
Like,
tweet you
there's
back
no
or retweet
question.
that at all?
Oh no, I'm sure he gets a million fucking tweets
Yeah.
added at pinged to him, and who
Lost in the
knows?
ether, yeah.
I watched this entire series like a week after I was supposed to, so chances are someone already told him, like, "Hey, you look like this guy."
Mm. I mean, you watched it all this past week, the week of the finale, so you could watch it all at once, which was the smart move, which is how I choose to watch most shows. I'm like, well, I'll wait until the end so I can watch it all.
I'm glad you think it was smart because it was not planned at all.
The hard part for me is spoilers because I like to see everything before I see hints of it online. Plus, I like to watch breakdown videos and whatnot afterwards just to make sure that my knowledge matches up with the general knowledge of the MCU and whatnot.
Luckily, the only spoilers I saw were people being like, "Oh my God, Stephen with a V is my favorite," and that sort of thing. So,
I mean, he was established as like the main character of the show until you figure out that Mark is actually the main character of the show. I'm like, what a good way to do that, by the way. It's like, oh yeah, Steven is the split personality. He's the alter. So we don't have like they subverted all this expectations and stuff by showing us the alter's life before they even gave us any hint that Mark was even around or any
I will say
backstory of
though,
Mark. I'm like,
I will
cool.
say though, the whole like him calling his mom and his mom never answering or calling him back did kind of put out a red flag for me.
Oh, same.
I was like, something's up here.
And even though I have some background knowledge of Moon Knight, I'm like, Steven's making a phone call to a person who might be his mom. I'm like, mm, maybe not. Maybe he's insane.
So let's see. I talked about that. I do have a list, by the way. I'm
Oh,
going through it right
excellent.
now.
Oh, that works for me. My prep work
um,
ended at setting up this part of the podcast.
I guess the only other one, this is the last one on my list, but there's definitely more to talk about, is the whole underworld thing
Mhm.
doesn't make a whole. It does and it doesn't. Like, I keep going back to it and, like, trying to analyze it because you do have Jake Lockley stuck in a sarcophagus the whole time. And so it's like, oh, make your hearts full, like, make them balanced. It's like, you don't even have the third guy. How are you supposed to make them balanced?
Right, but they only put 2 on the scale. If they had put 3 on the scale, shit would have been really fucky. They put 2 on the scale, one of them quote unquote died. So now only one heart had to be measured.
But then there's also the fact that they're going through all these memories. There's some that are, well, they're all Mark's memories.
Hmm.
Um, but you see little bits of Steven in there. You never see bits of Jake.
True. They never saw him
However,
switch.
my theory, I don't. This is a very poor theory, and I don't think it has any, like, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. I don't think it has any, like, holding. Is that, do you think that Jake was a thing before Steven? And do you think Jake is the reason that his brother died?
I don't think Jake is the reason his brother died. I think Mark had a psychotic breakdown when his mom came to beat him, created Steven. Steven can only see his mom as a good person, so took the beatings for Mark. But there is a theory that Jake was also created during those beatings to take the psychological impact.
Hmm,
So that's
that's a good
why
point.
Jake is kind of a scumbag, because he grew up with a shitty parent.
Yeah.
He's the one who took all the psychological trauma that Steven should have been experiencing.
And, like, that's not to say that Mark didn't experience any trauma, because he
True.
totally
Yeah,
did.
Mark's super fucked up.
But I think it's just that Jake was meant to spin it in a different way.
Hmm.
I don't know. I feel like Mark took on, like, the victim role, whereas Jake took on the fuck you, I'm gonna get over this role.
Right. And throughout this whole show, like, I made my parents watch this, I got you to watch it, and everyone coming back to me saying, oh man, it's interesting to see Steven being the good twin and Mark being the bad one. And I'm like, oh, buddy, Mark's right in the center of the road. You haven't seen the bad one.
There's nothing.
And I'm glad they didn't show Jake. I'm like, it's so much cooler to have them wake up in a pool of blood. It's like, oh man, how did this happen? It's like, yeah, Jake's a fucking monster sometimes.
Well, I told you, I think it was after, like, the third episode. I was like, look, you have Steven, who, like, doesn't even touch anyone.
Hmm.
And you have Mark, who, like, yeah, okay, when Mark takes over, some people die, but it's not like a bloodbath. But then there are those moments, like when he was in the truck on the mountain and he blanks out, and all of a sudden everyone's fucking dead. And it's just like a very grim look. I'm like, I don't know, that could have been something else. And
Well, that
like
could still be
like you
Mark too.
said, it could. But that's when I started thinking about it. I was like, those total bloodbath situations where he walks away unscathed were the ones where I was like, something doesn't add up. And it was probably around the third episode that clicked for me. But it wasn't until I saw the sarcophagus that I was like, all right, they're hiding this.
Yeah,
And
they have some subversive shit going on right here.
yeah. And they did. I don't think they really were trying to hide it per se. They made it very clear to the viewers that, like, there was some heavy hinting going on.
I'm actually surprised that Khonshu kept it a secret
I
because
think Khonshu only
during the
kept it a
whole
secret
during that whole
if Jake
stint
kept it
on
her.
the mountain during the drive or whatnot, he's like,
Mhm.
oh, the worm's back or whatever. And I was thinking, you know, Khonshu doesn't have a reason to keep this a secret, but at the same time, so I'm thinking it's only him and Mark in the driver's seat. Does Khonshu even know about Jake? But by the end,
Well,
it's like, oh wow, he does know about Jake, and he was smart enough to keep that a secret.
okay, here's my theory. So, Mark tells Steven, you didn't start showing up until 2 months ago when you started taking over. And that's when it became kind of imbalanced.
Right after the
I
mother's funeral.
I'm willing to bet that he kind of pushed Jake deep down, didn't let him out. And he only just started coming back out when Steven and Mark started having their, like, internal battle.
Oh, that's a good idea, good theory.
So maybe Khonshu didn't know about Jake until started showing up more and like doing the whole bloodbath thing. Probably had a little convo with Khonshu in the middle of it. Like,
Hmm.
yeah.
In that, right after Khonshu tries to kick Ahmed's ass the first time in the temple, before he nopes out, when Mark comes back to life, Khonshu feels it. He says, "Mark," and then he like flies away, and he goes to him.
Right.
I'm thinking to myself, like, man, if Steven had woken up, would he still have sensed Mark's presence, or is it just like he can sense only Mark and doesn't really care about the personalities, just wants the one that serves him?
I think it's just a matter of Mark is the original.
Yeah. Mark's body, he senses Mark's presence. Okay. But he can sense when they switch, because at any time Steven would swap in for Mark, he'd be like, the worm's in charge. It's like, and give Mark back the body or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, so he can sense the switches.
Oh, so the other thing that I mentioned to you earlier was like the bloodbath thing. The other thing that set me off to like, okay, something's up is it was always when the transition was mutual that it made sense that it was Stephen to Mark or Mark to Stephen. Like, okay, you can have the body. Okay,
Hmm.
you can have the body. It's those instances where they're like, no, you can't have the body. I'm not giving you the body. It's not going to happen. And then he's about to die. And then it switches and blacks out. Those are the instances where I was like, mm, something's going on here.
I don't know. Near the beginning, and I might think you have a point, but near the beginning of the show, in like the first two episodes, when the switches aren't mutual or whatever, I think that it's just Mark taking back over, kicking some ass, and then it's going right back to Steven because Steven's got his own willpower. Um, I'm thinking that what you're saying is right. They started showing the switch, like when, even when Steven was just talking to Layla and Layla confronts him about killing his father. He's like, Mark, I want to talk to Mark. And Steven's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna let this happen. And then he just kind of backs out and lets Mark take over. They started
Mm-hmm.
showing those transitions, but
Right.
I think the transitions beforehand were cut just to keep Mark a surprise for the first two episodes.
So, example, when they are on the mountain and he's like, no, I'm not giving you the body, but he's trying to drive the truck. And someone points the gun at him and then he blacks out. And when he comes back, everyone's dead.
Hmm.
That was the first example. Then you have the scene where they're in the museum running away from the monster. And Mark's like begging him, like, give me the body, I can take care of this, I can save us. And so he willingly gives up that body. He doesn't black out per se,
Hmm.
or we don't see the blackout because it's clear. However, I don't know. Once I learned about Jake, I was like, there's so many instances where Jake could have taken over. Like, it's not
True.
even like Mark could have taken over for asking that girl out on the date. It could have been that Jake asked the girl out on the date.
True.
But I don't think that's the
Because he's a
case.
magic Spaniard.
Yeah. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but that's one of those things
No, you
that
have
I'm
a point.
questioning.
I do have a small rebuke for you, though. At some point, Mark was doing his Mark thing, and he went to go steal the scarab, the golden scarab, from the castle in wherever Germany, the Alps or whatever. Um, we first are introduced to that situation because Stephen wakes up on the ground outside the window. And we're
Right.
like, oh man, what's this crazy situation Stephen's in? If if they switched any time that he was about to die, switched to Jake, why would Stephen be the one that woke up on the ground outside of that situation? Like, this is a death-defying situation. He was thrown out of a castle window or whatnot.
True. Yeah, there is no explanation for that.
I don't know. I'm throwing as many darts to the board as you are,
That whole
so
thing was very confusing to me because I didn't understand how they got the scarab. I didn't understand when or how. Like putting together that like this is where they get the scarab and
Mhm.
why they got the scarab was so weird to me. It's like why?
I like that.
Were they just
Sometimes
taking it
sometimes a
from
movie or a
Arthur?
show will go out of their way to go on this little side adventure to set up the main adventure. It's like, oh yeah, we
Mm.
came across this castle, we broke in, and we fought all these people, we got the Scarab MacGuffin thing. But this show is like, yeah, they did that off screen. Don't fucking worry about it. And I love
Like
that.
I would assume it's because Khonshu learned about Arthur and was like, hell no, we're gonna take that scarab
hmm
before he does. But they never say that explicitly. They're just like 1 second they're going to sleep and the next second they have a scarab in their
hmm
pocket.
I'm fine with the jump cut there because Steven is the main character until we meet Mark.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
cutting out Mark's adventure and Khonshu's deal with him is a great way to set Steven into an unknown situation, which is pretty good storytelling in my opinion.
Yeah. No, the show in general is very good. I just always have these like questions that are either I have to ask you and you answer them, or they're just like, it's just the show. That's just how the show is made.
I do like that there are some moments where Mark is in control of the body, but Steven's still present in the brain. Like that whole section where they're in that town post getting the scarab or whatever. Steven's trying to hide, and then Arthur confronts him. He's like, "Give me the scarab." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, take the scarab. I don't give a fuck." And then the body's like, "Nope," holding onto the scarab very tightly. Or the body just turns around, starts walking away, and Steven's like, "I'm not doing this."
He gets like the spidey senses.
hmm You shouldn't be able to do that. How are you doing that? But
Yeah.
I think it's funny that Mark explains in like episode 2 is like, yeah, sometimes it's gonna take all your willpower just to be a fly on the wall, just to be in the mirror, just to talk to me. Uh, but every time some involuntary bodily motion happens, it's just Mark doing it. It's not Steven. Like when Steven kisses Layla or they kiss each other, whatever. Um, Directly afterwards, Mark takes over the fist and punches Steven in the face, which is fucking hilarious. But at the
Yes.
same time, it's like, how come Steven's never doing any of the involuntary stuff?
I think it's
Or
just a matter
Jake, if
of like,
Jake's the super violent one.
I think it's a matter of like, Mark was stuck in the background for like, what, 2, 3 months, and Steven's only been stuck and like understands consciously he's stuck for like a couple days.
Mm,
So I think it's just a matter of like being there long enough to kind of understand your boundaries.
true. And during the during the switches, so Mark is fully, I want to say Mark is fully conscious of everything that Steven's doing, but Steven was almost never conscious of what Mark was doing, and neither of them are conscious of what Jake's doing.
Neither of them
But
are
near the
conscious.
end of the show, we see that Mark and Steven can communicate actively to each other in the same moment in time, so they're both conscious of what the other's doing, and yet they have no idea about Jake. I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
But
I mean, it's one of two things. Either either the end of the show is kind of like a flash forward to like they know something's up and they're trying to figure it out, which is why they're going through the whole rigmarole, like the sand and the door sealing shut and that whole thing. Or Jake's just kind of making fun of them and doing that for them.
possibly.
And they're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I don't know if Jake is conscious or if he wakes up in these strange situations like, well, I guess I have to kill everyone.
Oh, absolutely. He almost always wakes up like, all right, time to die.
He's like, I don't know where I am, what's going on, or what matters. All I know is that I must kill.
Right.
And Moon Knight's like there, yeah, Jake, fucking kill him.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah,
worry, he'll
and you know
talk.
it
Just hang him
makes
off the
sense.
ledge, Mark. It's cool.
Someone
Jake
might
would have done
say
it.
like, right. Someone might say like, why didn't Jake take over when he got shot? And I'm like, well, there were like 20 people in the room with guns, so probably not gonna make much of a difference if it's him or Jake.
Hmm. Just about whether or not the suit's on, and whether how they're bulletproof.
And they don't have the suit, so it doesn't matter.
Hmm. That's a good point. I was expecting more no suit action after they got it taken away. They got it taken away real quick. They got it taken away in like episode 3, right? And then they did episode 4. They went to the tomb and whatnot, and then episode 5's all just they were shot and here is death. So they,
Yes.
so I did expect more no suit action because this show was pitched to me as, oh, they're trying to combine Indiana Jones and a Marvel movie. And I'm like, with Moon Knight? That sounds pretty fucking cool. I didn't know much about Mark's profession before Moon Knight in the Moon Knight comics. I've known Moon Knight as Moon Knight because I wasn't introduced to him at the beginning. Besides, he's white Batman with magic, and he's occasionally insane, which is always funny to watch in memes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but I think you answered all my questions.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Do you have any non-spoiler questions about the MCU regarding other Marvel shows and or I know you haven't seen Multiverse of Madness, but I now have.
I cannot see that for another days at the 7th, so I have like 4 more days to suffer.
Mm, rough.
But I've heard good things about it, so maybe next week we can talk about Multiverse of Madness.
I went and saw it yesterday, and the entire preceding day, it's just, oh, I'm on social media. Here's an article about blah 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 blah. Doctor Strange. I'm like, scroll past, scroll past. And like I saw at one point out of the corner of my eyes, like Doctor Strange ruined blah blah blah, and I'm like, no, no, I did not read that. I read Doctor Strange ruined, and I scrolled, and I'm like, no, get the fuck out of here. So I worked very hard to avoid the spoilers. But
Yeah, do
now
you think
now that I've seen the movie, I tried to go find those articles and those videos again, and I'm like, I can't find them anywhere. And I'm like, what did they ruin? I thought the movie was so good.
here's a question. Do you think that Moon Knight was affected by the blip at all?
Oh, someone did the breakdown recently. Um, they show his passport and they show Layla's passport at certain times. Um, and his birthday lines up with how old they say he is at some point in the show. So it sounds like he was not blipped,
Okay.
and that's
Yeah.
probably when the uh, the Bushman situation happened in the desert. I bet you that happened during the blip, during a huge government relax, while a bunch of the shadier military spec ops people are doing their own thing, trying to make money in a world without a lot of authority anymore. I bet you
Fair.
that's when that happened.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm wondering if Moon Knight is going to be a sort of standalone thing for a while. I'm
Oh,
assuming it will be because of the whole Jake Lockley thing, but it would be cool once he figures it all out
hmm.
to have him incorporated.
The thing is, they said they're going to do a season 2, but I don't know if they're going to work him into an MCU title, like on the big screen, before then. Like,
If they
I know there's not going
do,
to be a WandaVision season 2, because they told everyone, like, yeah, we're not doing a WandaVision season 2. She's had her whole story, uh,
right,
and it's not a spoiler, but she's in Multiverse of Madness. I won't go into what extent, but like, they play off of that. It's like, oh yeah, remember that shit you talked that happened in WandaVision. Well, now we're talking about it, and I'm like, yeah, I do remember that show.
But I also feel like you probably don't have to watch the shows to understand the movie.
You might want to watch WandaVision before you watch Multiverse of Madness.
But I don't think that that is their intent. I don't think their intent is to make it so that people have to watch their shows
True.
in order to understand their movies.
Well,
That's just
Captain
sounds like
America
really bad
4
marketing.
is set to come out at a certain time, and I know that that Captain America movie is going to feature Sam Wilson as Captain America,
Yeah, but
which is
that
established during the TV show. So I'm thinking they are
no.
trying to make it mandatory. Not mandatory, but
So
you know.
here's how I feel about that. They do introduce Sam Wilson as Captain America at the end of Infinity War, or Endgame rather.
True.
So we already know that Sam Wilson is going to be Captain America.
Oh, that's
But
fair.
there is like a whole gap where there's a different Captain America and then he loses it and then there's going to be some characters, some shady characters that are introduced in the series that are going to be worse in the upcoming movies.
Hmm.
So they kind of set you up for the movie, but I don't think it's something that you have to watch to understand it.
All right. Counterpoint. Hawkeye. They're gonna have
Um,
Kate Bishop in a movie at some point.
Eventually,
She wasn't introduced or even talked about in any other movie, so that show is gonna be required watching for that.
I guess it depends on how they um approach it. But yeah, I could see your point on that.
I did like what Multiverse of Madness did with acknowledging what happened to Spider-Man, but without mentioning anything specific about No Way Home, because, you know, how that movie ended, you're not really supposed to know anything about Spider-Man afterwards. Like, oh yeah,
Right.
what do you know about the multiverse? Like, well, I had this whole thing with Spider-Man. They're like, oh, okay. And then that's it. That's it. They move on. And I'm like, this is great. That's all the
I
Easter
thought
egg I needed.
this is all I'm gonna ask about multiverse, but I thought the implication was that Doctor Strange would also lose his memory of Spider-Man.
He knows who Spider-Man is. He doesn't know who Spider-Man is.
Oh, okay.
That was the
See, that's
important
the
takeaway.
okay.
People
All
still
right.
know who Spider-Man is.
People still know Spider-Man. They
Hmm.
just don't know who he is.
You know what pisses me off about Spider-Man in these movies?
What?
All the stuff that happens in New York in these goddamn movies. In Captain America, the show, sorry, Falcon and Winter Soldier, there's a huge fucking crime thing happening in New York. Spider-Man does not show up for. Captain America and Bucky, or Falcon and Bucky fucking figure it out. I'm like, yeah, Spider-Man probably could have swung through and helped out somewhere, like catch a truck or something. That's what
Well,
we need Spider-Man for. He doesn't need to be pivotal, but he needs to show up on occasion. And in Multiverse of Madness, some shit happens in New York, and then Spider-Man doesn't show up. I'm like, guys, I get it. It's not his movie, but he lives in New York.
I think the implication for Spider-Man is that they're trying to really pull him back to like friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, in which case he's really just doing like the uh infrequent shootings, infrequent like bank robber
Hmm.
situations.
Street level crime,
Like
not a giant
yeah,
octopus
exactly.
attacking downtown
I
New
don't
York.
think that he's trying to draw attention to himself. And I think he's probably also going to go to that school. So he spent a lot of time studying for that. So I think he's just kind of doing it as like a side
All right, he's going
thing.
to MIT, isn't he? No. Yes? I can't remember.
I'm fairly certain, yes, with his friends who don't know he exists.
Yes.
Am I giving away too much?
Nah, that movie's been out for a while. The spoiler ban lists 2 weeks after the movie comes out,
Okay.
so I I won't go into too much detail about Doctor Strange, but we can go as in depth as we want with Spider-Man
Yeah, we don't
and
have to go into depth about
any of the
Spider-Man for this
shows.
one. Yeah. But basically I was just wondering if Midnight is going to be incorporated in the future. And where does he lives in Britain? He lives in London.
Well, Steven lives in London, but Mark is from uh, I want to say New York. I know Jake Lockley's lives in New York. He works in New York. But Mark just kind of goes wherever the fuck he wants. He's been a mercenary for a long fucking time, so he lives wherever. So I assume he's fine living in London because that's where Steven wants to live.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think if I just don't think they've set him up at all for incorporation yet. So I feel like we're probably gonna have to see a season 2 before we see him in the MCU more.
Probably. But it'd be nice to see like a cameo or something. It's like, oh yeah, like shit. Not what's the next? Thor's next, isn't it? So Thor probably won't mention fucking Moon Knight. But Thor's off the planet. Never mind.
Although, have you heard anything about Loki season 2 at all?
Shit. Let me Google that because that is an interesting question.
It's been almost a year, I think.
It came out, I want to say Christmas time, last year.
No.
Not last year, sorry. Over a year ago. Was it Loki first or was it WandaVision first?
It was WandaVision first.
Okay, so WandaVision came around Christmas time, New Year's of 2021, and then Loki was after that.
June 9th. So yeah, it's been almost a year.
A bunch of new
Or no. Yeah.
head writer changes is all I'm getting here. It's not scheduled yet. Release date back in August. Oh, it was in August that Loki season 1 came out. There's a teaser, but I'm not going to click on that because that looks fake as shit. No, so I'm going to go ahead and say no news. They said they're up 2 days ago, like they got a new writer, and I'm like, oh yeah, they're not ready yet.
Yeah.
But no, I think it'd be cool to see Moon Knight pop in something. I know there's going to be another Avengers movie in the next few years, and I don't know what threat they're going to face in that one, because I don't think they're going to fight like the next big bad. I think it's just going to be another sub bad like Ultron was.
Yeah,
And I know that's going to have
Ultron's-
Spider-Man in it because he's contracted to be in it. I'll bet you money that Kate Bishop will be in it.
Yeah. They're definitely gonna do like a Young Avengers type of movie where they bring all of the
Oh, that's the other thing.
youngins.
Miss Marvel comes out soon, which Marvel release date. June 8th, we're going to get Miss Marvel. I bet you she'll be in the next Avengers movie.
Wow, that's really soon.
Yeah, it's not getting the press it deserves. I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they do her origin because she's an Inhuman and Inhumans aren't really established in this universe like the same way mutants aren't. So it's like if they made a fucking Wolverine movie in the MCU and didn't explain how he got his powers or why he has his powers. So I'm interested to see on how they handle that. I know they're not ready to go into the whole Inhuman thing, so
Well,
it should be interesting to watch.
you
Anyway.
don't have to confirm or deny it, but I have a feeling that mutants will probably be introduced in the multiverse of madness.
Okay, so
I
the
have
thing
a
with the
feeling.
multiverse is you don't have to care what's happening in the multiverse. We only care about in MCU movies. We only have to care about what's happening in the MCU. So I will neither
Okay.
confirm nor deny anything that happens in Multiverse of Madness.
So you're
But
telling me that
if you
it
walk out
might
saying, "Oh man,
be,
I wish they had established something," or "I wish that
but
those
it's not going to be
people hadn't done
established.
this,"
Okay.
I'd say
They
the
might tease
MCU is still clean.
it.
They haven't
Dumb.
brought in stuff from other universes to fuck up the MCU.
Okay. All right. That's
There's a
fair
lot of
enough.
cool cameos, a lot of cool action, a lot of cool, uh, a lot of surprising film work. Holy shit! I could see why they wanted a rated R rating at the outset of this movie, but they did what they could with what they had, and they did a good job.
That's good.
But yeah, at the end
Yeah,
of the
I'm
day, the
looking forward to
MCU
it.
is still the MCU. We're not there yet.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. It's stuff that I saw from the trailer made me think that it was probably going to happen, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be an established thing.
Hmm.
That makes
Well,
sense.
the the cameo established in the trailer. Are you talking about the bald guy?
I don't remember. I
Okay,
don't
never mind.
remember. Like, all I know is that
That's
I remember seeing the trailer and thinking, oh, mutants might be a thing.
I remember seeing the trailer and thinking, God damn it, they keep putting out fucking trailers. I'm trying to go into this movie surprised.
I do, I will agree, trailers can be kind of frustrating in that sense.
No, I will just flat out say, because this is in the trailer, Professor X, Captain, Professor Charles Xavier will
Hmm.
be in this movie because it's a multiverse movie and they're allowed to cover whatever the fuck they want.
Is it the young version
It
or the
is not.
old?
It is Patrick Stewart.
Oh, cool. Okay.
It was very cool to see him,
Nice.
but he's not in the MCU. This is a
Right.
multiverse thing.
Understandable. Yeah. Do you think it's the kind of movie that people could skip if they were watching the whole, if someone wanted to get a good handle on the Marvel series and all of the Marvel movies, is this one of those movies that it's like, you could skip it?
You could skip this. And not to
Okay.
say that it's bad. I think it's a great movie and
Uh-huh.
it totally belongs in the MCU, but in the terms of like, oh man, who's doing this, who's doing that, uh, who's alive, who's dead, they're all the same. It had the same peak and valley. That's what I want to say. The same start point and end point, basically. It's like, yeah, no one in the MCU was affected by what just happened, but it was a really cool movie.
All right, yeah, that's what I wanted to know. Because there's definitely, I've watched all the movies over again with friend,
Hmm.
and there were definitely some movies that I was like, for the sake of getting to the end of this, I don't. If you want to watch it, we can, but if you don't,
Right.
we won't be missing anything.
Like in the next Avengers movie that comes out, if a certain character pops up and everyone's like, "Oh, who the fuck is that?" And like, "Oh, well, that person was introduced in a post-credit scene in Doctor
Mhm.
Strange 2, so you don't have to care about her
Right,
whole backstory." It's like, "But who is that?" And like, "Well, that was the main focus of Doctor Strange 2. That you should probably care about." But
right.
that's another Young Avengers type deal with if we're gonna have Spider-Man and Ms. Marvel and Kate Bishop, we're probably going to have, and it's not a spoiler because she's in the trailer and she's name dropped everywhere, America Chavez.
Well, that's also
It's like,
why I feel
if
like,
anyone wants to know about America Chavez, oh, yeah, watch Doctor Strange too. But
yeah,
everyone's
that
like,
much
oh
I
man, who's this Clea character? It's like, oh, that was a post-credit scene. Don't fucking worry about it. It's not even a spoiler because there is no impact on anything. She showed
know.
up, she did some flashy magic stuff, and then they left. And I'm like, yeah, that's basically her.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel about Moon Knight. Like, I don't see him being incorporated, one, because he's still figuring out his shit, and two, because they didn't really leave an opening in the show except for in the after credit scene. So anyone just watching it to watch it would have missed that, and therefore it's only really, yes, it did open it up for season two, but not in the way that a casual watcher would understand.
Right. I honestly, all I'm hoping to get from the main MCU, referring to this show, if they don't bring Moon Knight in directly, I want them to mention what happened to the fucking sky. Because can't you literally just rewound time in the skybox?
I just know that, like, if it were Spider-Man, he'd just be like, "Oh, that's cool."
Well, yeah. But I'm like, I need like a news story in the background of some
Oh
situation where
yeah.
the main characters are doing something. It's like, oh yeah, you see that shit in the sky? Yeah, that was fucked up, wasn't it? That was it. That's all I'm looking for to get from Moon Knight at this point because they did. I want to say that the writers came out and say that the big god fight in the last episode outside of Cairo, where they were bashing the shit out of each other and hitting the pyramids and stuff. No one saw that.
Right. Yeah. No, I got that because obviously the only ones who can see the gods are the Avatars.
So the violence that was happening in the streets with Arthur, Moon Knight, and shit, I think she's going by the Scarlet Scarab, but Layla's character. Um,
Oh, that's a cool name.
yeah, it is, and it's a gender bent version of the Scarlet Scarab in the comics, which is fine. But the Scarlet Scarab in the comics was an Egyptian superhero or anti-hero that fought off a superhero team called the Invaders, which is a horrible connotation for a team involving Captain America. But, that's how they see America sometimes. So, but no, I liked her character. Where was I going with this? I had a point.
Scarlet Scarab,
Yep, that was part of
and
it.
that was part of it.
Oh,
Um,
right, right, right. Her character saved someone. It's like, are you an Egyptian superhero? And she's like, yeah, kinda. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's great too. That should be mentioned. I don't know if
mhm.
she's gonna be like a permanent addition to the MCU. If she's gonna stay, uh, is it Tuaret? Yeah, her avatar, or if she's gonna give up those powers immediately, and we're gonna be very nonchalant about that.
I think
But
the
that should probably be mentioned too. I think that should just get like a background mention. It's like, oh, a local fucking superhero saves the day in Egypt.
yeah, eh, it's it could just be she kind of has a similar look to Falcon, so I don't know if it would necessarily be like she has superpowers because she hasn't really shown any of that.
Hmm.
Um, but they did leave a lot to the imagination in terms of her past with Mark
Hmm. I'm
and
whatever the next
everything
Avengers
that's
movie
culminated.
is. I don't know if Moon Knight characters will be part of it, but if there's like another Doctor Strange movie or whatever, or another Avengers movie that's magic focused, like the enemy is a magician person, then I definitely think they should include the Moon Knight and Scarlet Scarab characters. Because if you're gonna have someone with magic powers, you might as well pit them against a bad guy who does magic stuff. It's like, all right, do we know any magic people? It's like, yeah, fucking call Moon Knight. He's magic. Call his wife. She's magic, and arguably a little bit better.
Yeah.
He's
I
like, oh yeah,
oh,
we'll bring in
so
Captain America, Falcon, who can fly. So that'll be really cool and stuff. But he's gonna get swatted out of the air by this giant sky beast or whatever. It's like, yeah, let's
so my
call in the
original
other woman who
point,
can fly.
I got distracted, but my original point was like originally she said this is only going to be a temporary avatar situation. I do not want to be your avatar long term. She said that initially. But I do have a feeling that it's going to be more of like a yes, I'll keep it, but I'll use it very infrequently.
Well, that's another thing. I don't know what the fuck Twilight would have her do.
I I
Like,
don't know.
Khonshu wants someone to go beat the shit out of bad guys, which is just classic superhero motive already. But I don't know what Twilight would want Layla to do.
Well, we don't know what any of the avatars are doing.
Good point. They just look like successful business people.
Kind of. They're probably just kind of
Rip.
controlling the course of politics and such from the inside.
Mm.
So if she's just kind of protecting women, children type deal,
I mean, then she could still be the superhero of Egypt and whatnot. That'd be cool.
right? And she can do it on her own terms because she was going to do that stuff anyway.
Hmm. No,
Yeah.
all good points. All right, She-Hulk is coming up this year too. That one could be hit or miss. There's,
I did not get into any of the Hulk movies.
it's okay. No one else did either. Hulk has a very troubled past on the big screen.
It would be really cool if the multiverse or some iteration of it would bring that to light. I mean, they kind of did in the What If series.
Right, 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 right. And there's payoffs to all of that stuff. And if I had been, if I had like a photographic memory or stuff, there's a bunch of flashes to multiverse stuff in Multiverse of Madness. Like, as part of the trailer, you see Doctor Strange in America tumbling through the multiverse at some point. And people have already broken down that stuff to death. But that sequence is actually significantly longer in the movie, and there's so much other stuff happening. I'm like, holy shit, where was that? Where was that? Where was that? Someone tell me about this.
Well, I'm sure we will go super into it after I see it.
hmm Until then, we are approaching an hour of recording here. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Okay.
So, do we have any closing notes in the last 5 minutes?
Moon Knight was very good. I recommend it for anyone who hasn't seen it. I'm sorry we spoiled everything.
Uh, the
Um,
MCU spoiler ban lifts 2 weeks for movies, 1 day for episodes. I'm sorry.
just make sure you put spoiler alert in the title
Yeah, yeah, I
and
gotcha.
we'll be fine. But anyone who watches this, thank you for watching, and hopefully this will turn into a regular thing for us.
Fingers crossed, and eventually, maybe, hard maybe, we'll stream it at the same time, and then just upload the VODs onto YouTube. And they're gonna go up on my YouTube on Xanehex, and possibly Nilo's eventually.
Maybe.
But
I haven't.
that's a hard maybe thing. She's
Okay.
already got her own streaming content to upload. This can just
If
be
you
my
guys are
thing.
interested in my stuff, I stream on Twitch fairly regularly. You should all come on Fridays. We do Jackbox games with viewers. And I will be starting my own YouTube stuff soon in the next like 2 months.
And
So
if
yeah,
this gets more popular than my any of my gaming videos, then I'll probably just make a second channel specifically for Hexcast stuff.
whatever works.
Whatever works. All right. No, thank you all for joining us. If you did, please like and subscribe and whatnot. And go check out Nilo on Twitch. Check out me wherever the hell else. And have a good one.
See you next time.
Bye.